Hello everybody and welcome to this allegorical study of Revelation 13. For a full introduction to this series, please watch the first 10 minutes of the video for Revelation chapter 1, in which I endeavour to explain the importance of understanding the symbolic meanings hidden in these stunning sacred parables and allegories. My book, The God Design, Secrets of the Mind, Body and Soul, gives a full explanation of both the spiritual and physical elements of what has become known as the sacred secretion. For this allegorical understanding, I have cross-referenced several sources and teamed that published knowledge with my own God-led insights and understandings. I do not profess to have all of the answers. I have merely endeavoured to give the fairest and most substantiated analysis possible. Please be aware that I have a yoga app available for iOS and Android. It is called Freedom Yoga and it's based on the teachings of the primitive Christians known as the Essenes. I will be using the King James Version of the Bible as a point of reference, largely because it tends to be the most popular translation among Christians. I do, however, believe it necessary to say that, of course, the King James Version of the Bible is not original Bible text, and that many of the Bible stories themselves are not original, but rather they are evolutions of predated tales. For example, the Sumerian Great Flood. A brilliant and comprehensive timeline of how the Bible ended up in its present day form can be found at www.thegreatsite.com under English Bible History. As to why the Bible is written in symbolic and allegoric parables, Jesus explains in the book of Matthew upon being asked, "Why do you speak to them in parables?" saying, "Hearing you will hear and shall not understand, and seeing you will see and not perceive. For the hearts of this people have grown dull. Their ears are hard of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For assuredly I say to you that many prophets and righteous men desired to see what you see, and did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it." On that incredible note, let's get started with this allegorical analysis of Revelation chapter 13. It's a juicy one. Okay, verses 1 to 2. "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and great authority." Okay, let's dive straight in. So, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea." Okay, so standing on sand means standing on a flimsy foundation. We cannot build our lives on weakness, uncertainty, or error, sand. any more than the foolish man could build his house upon it. In previous chapters, we have seen how the different seas and rivers physiologically represent vital fluids in the body, particularly cerebrospinal fluid, nerve fluid, and blood. Spiritually speaking, the sea is life energy. Life cannot occur without vital fluids, and the earth cannot exist without the sea. Okay, so, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea. So, in other words, a creature appears out of the bottomless pit, or unending, limitless potential of all. For further clarity, let's take a quick look at Charles Fillmore's description of the sea. The sea signifies universal mind, that great realm of unexpressed and unformed thoughts and ideas that contain all potentiality. Okay, so he had 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns. Now, as discussed in previous chapters, the creature's 7 heads are its leading head powers, and its 10 horns are its powerful 10 and stubborn horned nature. The crowns on the horns show how its powerful and stubborn nature is well established or initiated crown. In this case, I would suggest that the 7 leading forces or heads of this particular beast are the 7 facets of evil. The very things that have kept us both individually and in societies from operating in the true, abundant and blissful way that is possible. Those 7 are, of course, lust, which is also known as Asmodeus, avarice or greed, also known as Mammon, sloth, also known as Belphegor, envy, also known as Leviathan, wrath or anger, also known as Sathanas, gluttony, also known as Beelzebub, pride, which is wrongfully known as Lucifer, but I'll get to that later, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. So what is the name of blasphemy that appears on this creature's 7 heads? Well, the word blasphemy originates from slowness or stupidity of thought and speech. In other words, blasphemies of all kinds prevent the true spirit from quickening or enlivening within. In conclusion to this, I would say that the name of blasphemy written on this creature's heads is the unspiritualized intellect of man that leads people away from the truth. The intellect rooted in truth and teamed with spiritual understanding takes on a righteous phase of knowing, which results in true wisdom. But this creature does not represent that evolved phase of intellect. The name blasphemy is the intellect in its infancy. It's easily swayed, it's provocable, lured and manipulated by illusions. This is the very creature that has lured and seduced thousands of God's children, us, some of whom we are hearing about in the media during this pandemic. Moving on to verse 2 now. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. Now, the word leopard comes from the Hebrew word nimra, meaning spotted or speckled, i.e. not pure. It is the ruling will, which is happy to blaspheme, lie, rebel, cheat, etc. for its own perceived advancement. In the book of Jeremiah 13:23, we read the following: "Can the Ethiopian change his skin, or the leopard his spots?" Meaning, can the person who is so accustomed to doing evil, blaspheming, repent and do good? "And his feet were as the feet of a bear." Now, feet represent the connection between matter and spirit, as in the sole of the foot. The fact that they are described as bear-like shows that this blaspheming creature or unspiritualized intellect is a captive, i.e. it's burdened or forbearing, it's weighed down. And his mouth is as the mouth of a lion. Now, in this instance, we can see the link between lions, which are Leos, and leopards, or leopards, which are named after the powerful lion. Now, the mouth of the lion signifies volume and strength in voice, our power faculty. So, in other words, the unspiritualized intellect can be very loud and very persuasive. Now, and the dragon gave him his power and seat and great authority. Well, we know from chapter 12 that the dragon being alluded to here is the red dragon named Satan, which is the emotional red ego dragon. So here we see how the emotional ego gives power to the unspiritualized intellect. Its power, high rank, seat, and authority, which is the ability to dominate our consciousness. Hilton Hotema says that Ioannis, or John, used the well-known constellation Cetus, also known as the sea monster, or the sea lion, or the leopard and the sea bear, to signify the psychophysical mind, which is the product of low planes of being, psychic and physical. The psychophysical mind is indeed the unspiritualized intellect. So the breakdown for verses 1 and 2 is: I saw the unspiritualized intellect ascend from limitless potential. It is led by 7 forces: lust, pride, envy, wrath, sloth, avarice, and gluttony. Each force actively promotes evils of all kinds. The unspiritualized intellect is accustomed to erroneous ways. It is weighed down by material illusions and makes a lot of noise. The emotional ego gives the unspiritualized intellect power, rank, and allows it to take charge. Okay, let's move on to verses 3 and 4. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Okay, so there's no denying the fact that the descriptions of all of the beasts so far described in the book of Revelations are very detailed and elaborate. This is due to the fact that error and negativity can assume an astonishing variety of shapes and forms within human thought and nature, and can even morph and replenish themselves as they fight to rule over our faculties. with that said, let's get back to analysing verse 3. So, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. Okay, so the fact that one of these undesirable forces or traits is destroyed, but then healed, shows exactly how pride or any of the other blasphemies operate. For example, if someone destroys our pride, we may for a moment feel loss and depravity, and remorse even, but the very nature of pride itself is to fight back and avenge the oppressor. Thus the force of pride, head of the creature, is healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. And in this way, all the world, which is the microcosmic body that works in accordance with mind and desire, and the macrocosmic world of mankind, of course, wondered after the beast. Or they conform, they wonder to the unspiritualized intellect, and they worship the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. So the world honors the emotional ego, which gives power to the unspiritualized intellect. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? So basically, the whole world reveres the unspiritualized intellect, saying there is no match for it. Nothing stands a chance against it. So the breakdown for verses 3 and 4 is: one of the leading forces was destroyed, but its power was restored. The body reveres the unspiritualized intellect. The body venerates the emotional ego, which powers the unspiritualized intellect, and believes it to be all-powerful. Okay, so let's move on to verses 5 and 6 now. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. Okay, so given unto him a mouth. As we said, the mouth is a tool of the pharyngeal plexus or throat chakra. It's a gate for speech. Thoughts are given form and power by the mouth. Speaking great things and blasphemies, well, the great things are the boastful and egotistical claims, and the blasphemies are, of course, the evils of all kinds. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. So this beast, the unspiritualized intellect, has the opportunity to rule the mind, continue, for 42 months. Now we know from previous chapters that 42 months is equal to 3.5 years. And because days are often symbolized by years, therefore 3.5 years is also equal to 3.5 days. Now this, of course, is the time that the moon spends in each sign of the zodiac, including the void period every month. Now, more information about the timing of the sacred secretion is available in my book, The God Design, Secrets of the Mind, Body and Soul, and there is also a video dedicated solely to that subject on my channel, so check that out if you're interested. Now, when visualizing the 7 candlesticks, which are the chakras or nerve plexuses, and the fact that they are each said to have 7 pipes which are nadis or nerves, entering them, it's interesting to see that the sum of the first 6 chakras and their pipes is 42. This highlights the journey of spiritual substance rising upward through the earthbound chakras toward the 7th, spiritually connected crown chakra. Thus, we might say that the 42 months also serve as 42 phases before the sacred secretion, or Makaba, Kundalini, reaches the final chakra, where the unspiritualized intellect can no longer survive. So, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. This is the unspiritualized intellect, or bad conscience, using its power or mouth to do or say evil against the one creator of all, to insult God's name and the tabernacle. Now, the tabernacle is the perishable physical body. Charles Fillmore describes the tabernacle like this: in the wilderness of sense, man worships God in a tent, a temporary, transitory state of mind, which makes a perishable body. Yet in this flimsy structure are the furnishings of the great temple that is to be built. The outer structure was of cloth, but the altar, lava, candlestick, Ark of the Covenant, and all the inner utensils were of gold and silver and precious woods. This means that the central functions of the body are enduring, and that it is the fleshy covering that is perishable. So in short, the unspiritualized intellect mocks the perishable body and tells them that dwell in heaven, which is our spiritual thoughts of truth. So the breakdown for verses 5 and 6 is: in the lower chakras, the unspiritualized intellect has the power to create and perpetuate evils. It uses its power to tell lies about the one creator of all, to belittle God's name, our perishable bodies, and spiritual truths. Okay, let's move on to verses 7 and 8 now. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Right, so, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. So the unspiritualized intellect challenges, makes war against enlightened beings, which are thoughts of enlightenment, saints, and it gets the better of them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. So this means that the unspiritualized intellect has influence over our pure emotions, which are kindreds, our tongues, which are our words, and the 12 faculties of mind, which are the nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him. Here, the scripture is telling us that everyone on earth, or the microcosmic body that works in accordance with mind and desire, will follow the unspiritualized intellect. So, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world? If our name, which is our identity, is not written or recorded in the Lamb's Book of Life, it means that we are still in the cycle of death and rebirth. The Book of Life is the Akashic record, the log of all thought and activity, and it also refers physiologically to our DNA blueprint or genetic coding, which can be enhanced by true wisdom and knowledge. But in this scenario, the book is specified to be the lambs who were slain from the foundation of the world. So let's look at this more closely. The lamb, which of course is synonymous with Christ, is also linked to the lamp, which is the thalamus, the light of consciousness. So why is the lamb slain from the foundation of the world? Well, as mentioned in previous chapters, reality and time in the way that we perceive them are illusions. The truth is that everything, past, present and future, is happening at the same time. Thus the lamb, who is in this sense perpetually being destroyed, must be continuously resurrected. That's the Christ power. The lamb, the Christ power, has been slain from the foundation of the world, and it keeps happening. The foundation of the world is the beginning of time, because creation itself is the great cosmic dance of male and female aspects. The oneness, or Yah, divided into two in order to create and manifest reality. And it is up to us to resurrect or unite these aspects within us. The truth is that there is a continual weighing happening by divine law. Thus, at all times, we are either ascending or descending, or staying still on the great cosmic ladder. So the breakdown for verses 7 and 8 is: the unspiritualized intellect tries to dominate the enlightened mind and has influence over our pure emotions, words, and 12 faculties. All of the thoughts that inhabit the body and do not align with Christ consciousness are followers of the unspiritualized intellect. Okay, let's move on to verses 9 and 10. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Now, as in other chapters, verse 9 is basically saying pay attention, and verse 10 is self-explanatory. So we're going to head straight into the breakdown for verses 9 and 10. If you seek truth, pay attention. The unspiritualized intellect holds us prisoner and shall become a prisoner also. The unspiritualized intellect destroys with words and must be destroyed by words. This is the wisdom and power of the enlightened mind. Okay, moving on to verses 11 and 12. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Okay, so here we have yet another beast making its appearance. Probably this is the most renowned beast of all. This beast comes up out of the earth, and not the sea, as previously discussed. Now the earth signifies the consciousness of the physical body. This beast has 2 horns like a lamb and speaks like a dragon. The vast majority of people will know this beast by the name Baphomet. The true lamb is Christ, and although Baphomet resembles a lamb, Baphomet is the pseudo-lamb, meaning the shadow lamb, the imitation of the lamb, or indeed the fake lamb. Hilton O. Temmer, the author of Awakening the World Within, states that the pseudo-lamb, or fake lamb, of the apocalypse is a principle in man. He then goes on to explain that the fake lamb draws spirit from the unspiritualized intellect, which was the first beast before him, and that the force that it represents produces all indecent forms of psychism. This fake lamb principle, or indeed fake Christ principle within mankind, is the actor who produces fake miracles and the so-called masterminds that hypnotize the masses by using erotic passion and the inventions of materialistic science. The fake Christ principle builds naivety and disordered imagination. Those who understand this principle use it as a weapon to control and delude others, steering them away from enlightenment and keeping the true Christ energy in the lower chakras where the truth cannot be understood. The fake Christ principle is the mere reflection or shadow of the true devotional principle. Its symbol is the upside down pentagram, which followers are told illustrates that good and evil exist only through perspective, and that all creatures, things and ideas have a dark and light side within. That does not mean that evil is not bad and or excuse error thoughts and actions. This symbol is a means of belittling the unconditional love that is God and encompasses no evil whatsoever. The very fact that Baphomet, the fake Christ principle, speaks like a dragon, which is a force led by the ego, shows its deceptive nature. And we can't move on without reminding ourselves that lamb is also synonymous with lamp or ram and thalamus. So quite literally, Baphomet is the fake light in mind, the ego, selfishness, etc. Verse 12 then goes on to explain how the fake Christ principle uses the power of the unspiritualized intellect and causes the bodily consciousness, earth, and its thoughts, them which dwell therein, to exalt the unspiritualized intellect, whose deadly wound was healed. So whose excuses, theories, and delusional ways give it strength. So the breakdown for verses 11 and 12 is: the fake Christ principle rises up in bodily consciousness and sounds like the ego. The fake Christ principle uses the power of the unspiritualized intellect to encourage our thoughts, emotions, and actions to conform to it. Okay, moving on to verses 13 and 14. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles, which he had power to do in sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. Okay, so verse 13 tells us that the fake Christ principle does great wonders by making fire, spirit, come down from heaven, divine mind, onto the earth, so bodily consciousness again, in the sight of men. But sight pertains to the material reality as we know it. So in other words, the fake Christ principle uses spirit to pridefully exalt itself in the view of others. So moving on to verse 14, we see that the fake Christ principle deceives our thoughts by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. These so-called miracles are the inventions of the unspiritualized mind, such as machines and weapons and viruses. The fake Christ principle suggests that we should make an image to the beast, i.e. worship, conform and revere the unspiritualized intellect, which is hurt by words and continued to survive. So it's wounded by a sword and did live. Now, wounded by a sword and did live is also reminiscent of Jesus. Religions teach us to worship this outward person or character, but neglect to tell us of the true light within, which ironically is the love, hope, and power that Jesus embodied and taught. Jesus himself didn't tell us to hang crosses or wear crosses, nor did he expect us to worship images of him. No, it was the unspiritualized intellect that told us to do those things. So the breakdown for verses 13 and 14 is: the fake Christ principle uses power from divine mind to exalt itself in the view of others. It deceives us by means of inventions inspired by unspiritualized intellect, and tells us that it is a good idea to revere the image of the fake Christ principle. Okay, moving on to verses 15 and 16 now. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Okay, so the unspiritualized intellect has the power to give life unto the image of the beast. In other words, it was able to exalt the image, the materiality of the fake Christ principle and make it speak, give it power. The words that come from the fake Christ principle causes our minds to believe that we will not prosper materialistically or in health, and that we will even die or go to hell if we do not worship these material images, which are in fact false man-made idols. Now, moving on, verse 16 basically means that the unspiritualized intellect evokes all, every thought and every being. The all is the great and small, which, as in chapter 6, we saw were the great, those who perceive themselves to be superior to others, and the small are those who are valued or value themselves as beneath others. The rich and the poor are those with wealth of all kinds and those without. The free and the bond. In other words, both those who know that essentially they are free and exercise that freedom to whatever extent they can within their lives, and those that just plod along towing the metaphorical line, the bondmen. But here's where it gets interesting, and as you will know, there are hundreds upon hundreds of explanations available for this, but this interpretation will be kept in line with the metaphysical, psychological and physiological meanings. So the unspiritualized intellect causes all to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. To receive a mark means to receive a brand, something that identifies who or what we are. This mark, psychologically, is the tendency in human nature to cling to sin, error, violence, and negativity. These evils, though, cannot be allowed to remain in man indefinitely. Thankfully, due to the nature of God as the divine principle, they are perpetually detectable and always seeping into the great cosmic field of cause and effect. So eventually they will be cleansed. According to Charles Fillmore, the detecting of error is torment, and the dissolving and elimination is called burning. In other words, we consciously recognize our faults, feel remorse, and suffer the karmic consequences, either in this life or another. This great beneficial purification process works both within us and on the outside, and goes on forever and ever without relent. It is part of natural law. Okay, so let's look at the right hand. Most people in today's world are indeed right-handed. The evidence of how this came to be true points to some kind of genetic influence. The brain is arranged in two hemispheres, with the left half controlling the right side of the body, the right hand, and the right half controlling the left side of the body. Thus we know that the left brain hemisphere is controlling the right hand. Now, left brain tendencies such as analysis and planning tend to rule most people's minds, of course making the right hand dominant. This imbalance hinders the creativity expounded in the right brain. In the Zohar, it says that Kether, which is the father or Brahma, shows only its right side, never the left, because the left side relates to the unknowable and the right side to the knowable. In other words, only beings who fully understand and embody the supreme knowledge of all that exists, truth, are capable of understanding the left side of Kether, the father, or Brahma. So the final part of verse 16 says, or in their foreheads. Now in chapter 7 we saw that the forehead is the seat of intelligence, or the initiation point of intellectual perception. It is the place where error thoughts or carnal thoughts are conceived and crystallized. To have a mark on the forehead is to have something hindering it, which we'll come to see in a minute. So the breakdown for 15 and 16 is: the fake Christ principle exalted the understandings of the unspiritualized intellect, giving it power to say that those who do not conform will perish. The unspiritualized intellect causes mankind to have a tendency for error, inhibiting the right brain and hindering true intelligence. Okay, now we're on to the final two verses, 17 and 18. And that no man might buy or sell, have he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that have understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Okay, first up, and that no man might buy or sell. Now in Revelation 3:17, we heard Christ advise John to buy of me gold refined by fire, spiritual substance, and white garments, which are the purified aura. So we see that buying and selling is a transference or transforming of energy. And it is only us humans, men, by the power of thought, that have the capacity, made in the image and likeness of God, to make these exchanges. Error for truth, hate for love. Charles Fillmore puts it like this. When one denies his true inheritance as a son of God in thought, word, or deed, he is to that extent selling his birthright. Even the word trading originally meant the exchange of ideas. As light beings, we must be willing to trade ideas with other states of mind, with other faculties, disciples, and qualities in consciousness, always trying to better ourselves. This is why the Bible tells us in 1 Kings 10:14 that 666 was the yearly gold, spiritualized substance, tax of King Solomon, who represents the soul unified with peace and wisdom. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold, and that is from 1 Kings 10:14. Now on that note, let's talk about the mark, which verse 18 tells us is 666. Save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now here verse 17 is basically telling us that only humans have the ability to transmute their creature, animal energy. So here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of man, and his number is 666. Now the number 666, as we all know, is the number of mankind. The 666 beast and the fake Christ principle are man. The Bible tells us that man was created on the 6th day. 6 truly is our number, the number just short of the perfect 7. One of the elements in human DNA is carbon-12, and it is comprised of 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 6 neutrons. 666. The English name carbon comes from the Latin carbo, used for coal, and we've seen extensively how coal relates to the unrefined spiritual substance of mankind. For instance, coal is what we get from Santa, spirit, when we are naughty, acting against the true force of God. The transmutation of coal is again seen in Isaiah, what number? 6:6, which states Then flew one of the seraphims, ideas of purity or burning ones, unto me, having a live coal, carbon, in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar, which is the place of sacrifice or purification. And let's take a quick look at Ezekiel 3 verse 9. As an adamant, another word for carbon, harder than flint have I made thy forehead. Fear them not, neither be dismayed at their looks, though they be a rebellious house. Again, these verses are referring to the transformation of carbon 666. The quality of carbon 12 has allowed the intellect, forehead, to overcome material perceptions. Fear them not, neither be dismayed at their looks. The word has the power to regenerate or spiritualize the Adam, carbon 666, material man. Carbon is governed by the immutable law of thermodynamics, which is relative to the recycling of mass energy. In other words, carbon decomposes and dies due to natural law. We die due to natural law. Carbon 666 therefore signifies death. But Christ is, of course, the redeemer of death. So let's see how raising the phenomenon known as the sacred secretion, the Kundalini, or indeed the Shekinah glory, makes this redemption possible. Luke 12:25 says, "And which of you, with taking thought, can add to his stature 1 cubit?" Adding a cubit to our stature by thought means adding atomic elements, qubits, to our spiritual body's stature. This is done through unconditional love, or bhakti, which raises the body's bioelectrical frequency, causing the pituitary, mother gland, to stimulate the pineal, father gland, to create a cocktail of healing and empowering biochemicals such as DMT, pinolene, and luciferin. This is the true, straight and narrow path to enlightenment, which cannot be forced or faked. Pure love is the key to this activation. Carbon 12, 666, or indeed death, is the obstacle. As pieces of God, this is a journey of self-awareness, the realization of our inherent power that is activated by our thoughts, emotions, and actions. Infinite etheric plasma is free from carbon 666 death because it is the IHS, the immune hormone substance, aka the Spirit of God, Christ. Now finally, I will share how this is all evidenced by the Hebrew translation of 666. In the 1550 Greek Bible, the letters or digits in place of 666 are as seen at the end of the full verse here. Now, using the book Letter by Laurent Fluchhoff and cross-referencing my findings with the letter chart in Fossilized Customs by Lou White, I found the corresponding Aramaic Hebrew letters, which are. With those workings out disclosed, let's have a look at the Aramaic Hebrew meanings of Kuf, Samek, and Shin. 666. Kuf. The letter Kuf contains the letters Zain and Resh, which relate to the spinal medulla and the brain respectively. Thus we can see that the tree of life is represented in Kuf. The tree of life encompasses 3 brains. The sexual brain, Yesod, which seeks to justify unholy fornication. The emotional brain, Hod or Iod, which seeks to justify error feelings. And the intellectual brain, Netzach, which seeks to justify error thoughts. Through Bhakti, which is unconditional love, and the compassion of Christ, these brains can be aligned with God, infinite love, which again is the 144,000 activation, the sacred secretion, Kundalini, the Shekinah glory, etc. In Gnosis, which means knowledge, Kuf is the animal nature in us that must be tamed by unconditional love. For it is easier for a camel, compassion, to go through the eye of a needle, Kuf, than for a rich man, self-satisfied man, to enter into the kingdom of God. Matthew 19:24. Now let's move on to Samek. Samek contains the mystery of Lucifer. Lucifer is the Latin word for phosphorus. Lucifer, or indeed phosphorus, is an essential component of DNA, RNA and ATP composition. ATP is adenosine triphosphate, the universal biochemical energy source. In other words, phosphorus is essential for life, and we couldn't exist without it because DNA, RNA and ATP are literally the building blocks of life. Just like the alchemist's gold, phosphorus tends to be locked up inside certain minerals and needs to be stimulated or activated in order to be made use of. This can be seen physiologically when the pituitary gland stimulates the pineal gland to upgrade melatonin. When the sacred secretion is successfully preserved and raised, one of the enhanced biochemicals is called luciferin. Let's look at the definition of luciferin because it is absolutely astonishing. Luciferin, the living light molecule, bioluminescence, is the same product that allows fireflies to glow in the dark. This chemical can increase brain and nervous system energy and improve internal mind imagery, making dreams and visions very vivid and luminous. Now, my book explains the physical and spiritual aspects of what has become known as the sacred secretion in full detail. But it's important to know that the name Lucifer, meaning light bearer, is not in the Hebrew or Essene Bible. The name only stems back as far as the Latin Bible translation known as the Vulgate. Before such times, Lucifer was never a name used to describe the devil or Satan. There was even a Christian sect in the 4th century called the Luciferians, light bearers. The editing of sacred arcane texts has led to a widespread misunderstanding of the name Lucifer. The so-called fall of Lucifer symbolizes the fact that divine substance falls from heaven, crown chakra, to earth, the root chakra, and cannot be raised up again unless we align ourselves in unconditional love or bhakti. In other words, we must defeat all temptations and eliminate all of the inhuman elements that we carry within, anger, greed, lust, envy, pride, laziness, gluttony, etc., in order to embody the compassion of Christ. The fact that Christ and Lucifer are synonymous is even given to us in Revelation 22:16. I, Jesus, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. Manly P. Hall puts it like this: Lucifer, in the form of Venus, is the morning star spoken of in Revelation, which is to be given to those who overcome the world. In terms of the macrocosm and the microcosm, Lucifer is Venus and Phosphorus, respectively. The very influence of Venus, the phosphorus planet, coalescing with other star or stellar energy provides the composition of mankind. As the saying goes, we are made of stardust. And the final symbol is Shin. Shin is the symbol of fire or spirit. Shin, fire, is in cerebrospinal fluid, and Shin, fire, is in reproductive fluids. The three prongs of the letter Shin signify three flames. The three flames, Yesod, Vav, and Iod, represent the three brains encompassed by the tree of life, which were mentioned in the explanation for Kuf. Once again, they are the sexual fire, Yesod, the emotional fire in the heart, which is magnetic, Vav, and the electrical fire, intellectual, in the head, the Iod. From this Greek to Hebrew dissecting of text, we can see that the Hebrew scripture does indeed allude to the ability that mankind has to overcome their animal nature, the carbon-12, 666 death. So the final breakdown for verses 17 and 18 is: only mankind can exchange and transform their energies. This is the truth. The identity of the fate Christ principle that must be refined is carbon-12. Okay, let's run quickly through the breakdown for all of the chapters. I saw the unspiritualized intellect ascend from limitless potential. It is led by 7 forces: lust, pride, envy, wrath, sloth, avarice, and gluttony. Every force actively promotes all kinds of evil. The unspiritualized intellect is accustomed to erroneous ways. It is weighed down by material illusions and makes a lot of noise. The emotional ego gives the unspiritualized intellect power, rank, and allows it to take charge. One of the leading forces was destroyed, but its power was restored. The body reveres the unspiritualized intellect. The body venerates the emotional ego which powers the unspiritualized intellect and believes it to be all-powerful. In the lower chakras, the unspiritualized intellect has the power to create and perpetuate evils. It uses its power to tell lies about the one creator of all, to belittle God's name, our perishable bodies and spiritual truths. The unspiritualized intellect tries to dominate the enlightened mind and has influence over our pure emotions, words, and 12 faculties. All the thoughts that inhabit the body and do not align with Christ consciousness are followers of the unspiritualized intellect. If you seek truth, pay attention. The unspiritualized intellect holds us prisoner and shall become a prisoner also. The unspiritualized intellect destroys with words and must be destroyed by words. This is the wisdom and power of the enlightened mind. The fake Christ principle rises up in bodily consciousness and sounds like the ego. The fake Christ principle uses the power of the unspiritualized intellect to encourage our thoughts, emotions, and actions to conform to it. The fake Christ principle uses power from divine mind to exalt itself in the view of others. It deceives us by means of inventions inspired by the unspiritualized intellect and tells us that it is a good idea to revere the image of the fake Christ principle. The fake Christ principle exalted the imaginings of the unspiritualized intellect, giving it power to say that those who do not conform will perish. The unspiritualized intellect causes mankind to have a tendency for error, inhibiting the right brain and hindering intelligence. Only mankind can exchange and transform their energies. This is the truth. The identity of the fake Christ principle that must be refined is carbon 12. Well, thank you all so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this allegorical study of Revelation 13. Special thanks to all of my patrons, specifically Cindy Jewell and Christopher Hill, whose generosity is a massive blessing, more than ever at this time. Here are all of the links to my social media and to buy my book, etc. The writing, research and making of these videos does take a lot of time and does of course cost money. So if you would like to support by Patreon or by buying a t-shirt from my website or from below these videos, I would of course be very grateful. And I would like to just extend my love and well wishes to everybody on the planet at this challenging, epic, crazy time. Keep the faith. God is good. Amen.